Hey team, this week we talked to Toni Street, one of New Zealand's best and most popular broadcasters.
She's been on Breakfast TV. She hosted 7 Sharp with Mike Hosking for 4 years. She's been to Olympics and America's Cups and Commonwealth Games. She's one of our best.
These days you can find it on the Coast Breakfast with Sam Wallace and Jason Reeves.
Toni has lived one hell of a life, and we cover it all in this one. The joy, the tragedy, the laughs, and the beautiful family. This is one of our favourite episodes. Toni brings the best, most contagious energy, and you'll love this one. This episode is brought to you by TAB. Download the new app today and get your bet on. Toni Street, welcome to Between Two Beers.
Thanks for having me. It's cosy in here.
It is. We're very excited to have you in studio today. This has been about 4 years in the making, I reckon, when I look back at the messages. It's hard to pin down New Zealand's most wanted woman. And I didn't say New Zealand's busiest woman because that's Hayley Sproul.
Oh, yeah, she's pretty hectic.
Yeah.
Although she doesn't have kids yet, so you can't tell me that.
Yeah, true. Very good point.
Busy.
Very good point.
Busy.
But I wanted to start by asking about the term busy and being busy. Do you like being busy?
Do you know what? I actually do like being busy, but there is a point where you're too busy. And I don't like it when people say to me, oh, you're so busy. It kind of makes me feel bad, like I shouldn't be that busy. And I kind of know I shouldn't be that busy. And so there's all this guilt associated with it.
Yeah. I wanted to ask about the sort of the family planning. Do you run like a calendar operation?
He's always trying to get
like
tips from other people.
Yeah. What does it look like?
We try so many different realms of planning in our house. I've got an amazing husband that is very process orientated, and he's passed that on to my son actually, which was quite helpful. So we have a whiteboard calendar that we can write on. That's in our kitchen.
Old school.
And my little boy literally ticks off the days. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to have issues with him later because he does that. But I run a calendar on my phone. I have a paper diary that usually by about May, it just gets left in my bag, just adding weight to my bag with actually no entries in it. And then I've got the whiteboard. And sometimes they're all in sync and other times there's information in one calendar but not the others, which stresses me out because I can't remember which calendar I put it in. Yeah. But I do like to have a colour-coded calendar with every member of the family and what they're doing. And my husband and I share it across both our phones. Otherwise, if it's not in the calendar, it is not happening and we will not remember it.
Yeah, I love the detail.
That sounds good.
So give a little insight. So you've come straight from 3 hours of radio this morning. You come here, you're going to a bake sale after this. School holidays, so I imagine there's just a bunch of moving parts this afternoon.
My husband's hating on me right now because I coach.
Sorry, Matt.
I know, I'm so sorry. So I coach my daughter's year 8 netball team and very serious. We're going to Ames Games this year and they are one of the best teams for their age in Auckland. So we have to fundraise because it is so expensive to go to Ames. I've never been, but it's like $1,200 per kid.
Is that the biggest event in the world, I think?
Yeah, it's huge. So we decided we were going to start fundraising and we were like, we'll do an Easter bake sale. Now, the Easter bake sale is on the same day as recording this podcast and there was no way we were going to move the podcast again. God. And so my poor husband right now is organising like bunny cookies and little carrot cupcakes and there's a cyclone about to hit Auckland, so it's quite bad timing. And I rang him and I was like, are we all good? And he's like, well, I think we are, but don't leave me in the lurch. This bake sale starts at 12. You better be here.
I'm regretting asking now. I feel like maybe you should go.
The baking's amazing. I should have brought some. You guys could have actually contributed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's still time. Ames is a while away. You can still do the baking, and we can just do a direct purchase. How does that sound?
All right, we better make this worth your while then. We went pretty far and wide on the research for this one, but your good mate Laura McGoldrick gave us the best overview. So I actually want to read you.
Oh no, I'm suddenly regretting that.
No, it's good stuff. She said, the thing with Streety is what you see on the television is exactly what you get. She's the most beautiful human being and working with her was one of the greatest privileges of my life. Like just standing in her glow, she's just a beautiful soul. She's a ton of fun. She's got a great sense of humour. She's got a gorgeous family. She's tough as nails, but Streety has this unique ability to just make you feel like you're a really important person in her world and in the room. Like she really cares. She's interested and she's interesting. And she's one of those people that where you can pop around to her house, you bring all your kids to see her, and 20 minutes later, there's a roast chicken on the table. She's a wonder. She's a great homemaker. She's a great friend. She cares. She goes above and beyond. She looks after her people. She's fiercely loyal. I don't think I can speak more highly of Streety. I'll love her forever, and I feel very, very, very lucky to be one of her friends, and she's one of my closest. I love her because she's honest. She tells it like it is. She's got a beautiful relationship with her husband, Maddie. They are great mates, and they do a great job with 3 beautiful, beautiful children. I don't know how she does it all, but I'm just lucky to be her mate, to be honest. I hope you have an awesome time with her. She ends with, you might want to ask her if she's ever danced on a table till it's broken.
Oh, Laz, that's so nice. Are you asking me specifically about the table?
Yeah, I am.
So I used to be a clubby.
We all did.
Surf life saving.
Oh.
I'm not talking in
Not
the
out back.
clubs.
Yeah.
I'm talking about a surf club person for East End in Taranaki. And surf club, I don't know if you know the sort of community well, but it's quite a social community. And what you get, which is quite unique in surf club, is you get quite young people hanging out with older people. So when I first started doing surf club, I was, primary school age. But when you hit sort of that 14, 15, 16-year-old age group, you're partying with the older teens. And on this one particular night, I can't remember how old I was. That's a little hazy. I did.
18.
I made the terrible mistake of dancing on a trestle table. Now, we all know that they're not that sturdy and they sway. And I don't even know what I was dancing to at the time, but it did. It smashed to the floor. And I was so lucky because I could have easily broken something. I could have whacked my head. I didn't. But I don't know how Laura knows that. I don't actually remember telling her that story. So I don't know where she's got that from, but I can confirm it did happen.
Was that the only table that's ever been broken with you dancing on it? Like, is there potential for other table-related incidents?
Yeah, actually, I did have another table incident. No, this is actually one of the most guilty feelings I had as a kid. Kent Johns was a cricketer that I played with back in the day, and his dad, you might actually know the name, Ali Jordan. So he was a former black cap, and we were at his house, and they had this beautiful Rimu or Cody dining table. And I can't remember how I broke it, but I ruined their table.
Oh.
I don't know whether I leant on it or maybe I was standing on it once again. But he never lets me hear the end of that now. That family only knows me as the person that ruined their antique table.
Yeah, that label will stick. All right, that's a very strong start. I've got 10 things written in front of me. Shay's labelled it "We Need to Talk," which
that's clever.
Yeah,
You're
very
welcome.
clever. Give these as much or as little as you want, but they've come from a variety of sources. First of all, were you and Shay in a pub quiz team together?
Were we?
I don't also know the answer to this question.
Where's this info come from?
Alan Cairns.
Oh, Alan. Yeah. Alan, so Alan I met years ago when I first actually was doing an internship at Radio Sport, and I met her through some journalism mates. Were we in a pub quiz together?
That's what she said at the roundabout at Onehunga. Which I wanted to apologise because I don't really remember it.
Neither do I.
We were in a pub quiz team together. It was you, me, Toni, Goran, Rachel.
Oh, that would have happened because all of those people.
That was all the characters that were around. But I don't remember us being in a team. I remember I've met you once.
I'm so glad you don't remember the quiz because neither do I.
You guys obviously made quite an impression on each other.
No, yeah. I think you're. Well, I think I got invited to the flat, and you obviously lived there. So
well, I didn't live there. I was actually staying at that flat as well. I was just dossing down while I was doing an internship at Radio Sport.
And that's that's good. I'm glad that I veiled that in We Need to Talk. Yes. So that's good. So we both don't know.
So the second one, these aren't from us, by the way. So hopefully this doesn't come across a little bit weird.
The first one was.
Are you the fastest urinator in the world?
Oh, I know who that's come from. That has come from Sam Wallace. Yes, I am. So we do 3-minute radio breaks, and then you have only a few minutes for ads. And I like to get things done in my life, and I do everything at pace, including urination. And I will go to the bathroom with Sam Wallace and Jason Reeves, and I am hands down every single time the first person out.
Yeah, that's some skill because the mechanics that I'm aware of would suggest that the men would be able to finish quicker. But
well, you would think so, but no.
Wow.
I like to be. I'm competitive, so competed everything. First out. Don't know if I want to claim that, but
This one came from my mum. Are the keto gummies still available?
oh, I know what she's referring to. Someone put my face on advertising for weight loss keto gummies. And I am not a backer of keto gummies.
Distorted voice, though, as well, right? Wasn't like even close to your voice. I think that.
I love how you distort the voice. What about the body? They distorted my body terribly.
Fuck the voice.
I'm actually so offended that people thought it was real. I'm like, was I ever like that?
Yeah. No.
Did she buy it? Did Jen buy them?
No, I've confiscated her credit card because I think it was you and Petra Baggist, I think, were the two.
Yeah. I mean, I understand me, Petra Baggist, not so much.
Yeah.
I don't think she's ever been remotely overweight.
Well, former guest of the show, and I got Petra to record a message for my mum, so I might ask you to do the same.
Honestly, the amount of people that DM'd me on Instagram saying, do the keto gummies work? I was like mortified. I was like, I've never tried a keto gummy in my life.
Yeah.
I can't believe you thought I would be the face of a keto gummy.
Yeah, shame on you.
Yeah. Okay. We're going good.
It was such bad editing as well.
Yeah.
It tricked some
Shows how people get pulled in, right? Anything to do with weight loss.
You once got stuck in an F45 toilet for 45 minutes.
Honestly, I'm not proud of my behaviour that day. I am severely claustrophobic and I have not been able to get over that for my entire life. No, that's not true. I've got better. Like, I didn't even want to go on a plane when I was young. Like, mum and dad had to really talk me through getting on a plane because I hate the thought of being enclosed. And you have to get over things like getting in lifts because you go to some countries and stairs aren't an option. And I've been known I will travel like hundreds of sets of stairs rather than get in a lift.
Cross off number 7 on the list because we're just addressing that now.
The moment anyone even, like, you can't joke about it with me either. Like, I had a recent example. We were going to, this trendy rooftop bar in Auckland now, Queen's Rooftop. And we went for my mum's birthday and Dad came along, and my dad's a bit of a jokester and he's not scared of anything. And he thought it would be funny to jump up and down in the lift with me in it, and I lost it in him. I was like, this is the one thing you cannot joke with me about. I get claustrophobic. So can you imagine being at F45 and F45, the music's just blaring so loud, and in between a set, I was like, quickly go to the bathroom and quick bathroom.
Yeah, fastest urinator in the class.
It was going to be a 10-second trip. And my absolute worst fear was realised, and the F45 toilets had no windows. So they were already, I already, like, I didn't even lock the door, I don't think, because I do that because I'm so scared I'm going to get stuck. I'd rather someone walk in on me than get stuck in the toilet. And the handle broke and I couldn't get out, and the music was so loud no one could hear me. And I didn't have my phone because usually I take my phone to the bathroom.
Everybody does.
Yeah. But on this occasion I'd been working out, so I didn't have it with me, and I bashed on that door so hard, and I swear to God I nearly kicked it in because I was like, I'm dying here. And then I tried to kind of meditate and it wasn't working, and I got more and more panicked and I started screaming, and one of the guys at F45 must have heard me and he came rushing out, and I was like in this panic saying, you've got to get me out of here, I'm really claustrophobic. And I was trying to, like, I was nearly in tears at this point, and to his credit he managed to like fiddle the lock from the outside and get me out. But it really freaked me out.
That's traumatic.
Wasn't intending on bringing
It's going to be a fun light one.
Yeah, taking you to a dark place.
If you ever want to take me to a dark place, just put me in a room with no way to get out.
Jake, can we just open the door just to make sure Tony's comfortable?
Actually, it does feel quite claustrophobic in here.
I love the thought process in there where you've realised you're out of control and you tried to meditate. You take a few minutes, like, all right, I'm going to. Because
it's irrational. Yeah. Like, I get so bad now. I think I've actually got worse as I've got older, weirdly. I sometimes, like, if I go for, say, a massage and you go face down, sometimes I start to feel like the room's closing in on me there, and I have to quickly lift my head up. And the masseuse is like, what's wrong with this person? So I need to get some therapy with that, I think.
All right.
You head girl at New Plymouth Girls High, but used that status to wag class for sunbeds?
That's not entirely true. We had study periods, and back then sunbeds were what you did before the school ball. And yeah, I mean, I'm quite comfortable saying that because I still got an anniversary. So,
Yes.
you got to live a little. And I also went with the people I'm sure told you that. There was a group of about 6 of us.
20 centimetre titanium rod in your leg?
Yes. down my tibia.
There's backstory to that, surely.
Yep. So
No, it's just
just born like that.
So when I was in the sixth form, I think 16. Oh yeah. What year is it now?
12.
Year 12. I played rugby for our school's first 15 and for a club in Taranaki, and first 5, if you're wondering.
I was.
No, you're going to ask. Yeah. And the ball went loose on the ground and I went to fly kick it out. It was one of those ones where I was kind of the same distance from the ball as my opposition. She did the same thing. And we just clashed. And you know those TikTok videos you see where Sam Wallace sends them to me all the time.
No, not on my algorithm.
Funny that. And it was the perfect angle, and my shin went like a knee joint, and it made this almighty crack at the Two Copper Rugby Grounds in Taranaki. And yeah, I snapped my tib and fib basically in half.
And that was the end of the rugby career?
It was the end of the rugby career, but what was worse is I was a rep netballer at the time, and my high school coaches had said, we don't want you playing rugby. You're going to get injured. I'll be fine. And then I missed the whole rep netball season as well. It was quite a major. Like, I had to have a lot of time off school to get back. I had the big operation to put the rod in, and yeah, it was quite a recovery.
Jeepers.
Man, some of these, we're getting into some deep sort of buried.
We really are. I've got some issues.
Yeah. Well, maybe the next one will lighten it up. And you've kind of already alluded to it, but did you think about bringing us any of your world famous bark?
Oh, and I just made it for the bake sale.
I saw it on socials.
Look, I feel bad about this now.
Oh, Stephen doesn't know what bark is.
Do you not know what bark is? Where have you been?
Yeah, Hamilton.
I'm sure they have bark in Hamilton. So essentially all bark is it is the easiest form of baking anyone has ever made. You literally take a block of chocolate, you melt it down onto a tray, and you just throw yum stuff at it, put it in the fridge, and then you snap it. You don't even have to cut it pretty. You snap it so it looks like a piece of bark, but it looks really pretty. So like the bake sale bark I've got today is white chocolate with mini eggs all over it.
Did you find the mini eggs?
I did. It took a while. I went to several supermarkets, thanks Instagram. So that's what bark is. And it's become my thing at work where I theme the bark for any occasion. Like, you want matariki bark? I've got it.
Yeah.
Christmas bark, St. Patrick's Day bark. Yeah. And my boss keeps saying, can you bring out a new version of bark? And, birthday bark, whatever.
Yeah.
Thought there might be some coming in, but that's okay.
I do know
I
what
could
bark.
have done between 2 beers bark.
Hey, there's always time. All right, this is going very well. Again to the last few. Did you wear a suit to Sam's wedding?
I did. I was a groomswoman.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was quite liberating. It's easier wearing a suit than a dress because I've been a bridesmaid a few times and, it clings in all weird places, but the suit was great. Yeah.
He said you were the best looking in the lineup.
Oh, well, yeah, he's being a bit kind there. He had a very few good looking men. But I got to wear the suit and it was
Tie, everything?
Yep, bow tie.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Is groomswoman the official term?
Yeah, he wasn't
know.
sure when he explained it to me.
What do you think it is?
I just...
Yeah, it makes sense. I understand what it is from it.
Yeah, he said, and I said maid of honour, and he goes, no, on the other side. I was like, best man. He was like, no, the other ones.
Yeah, I wasn't the best man. I was the best woman it would have been, but it was quite a different dynamic being a woman to being a bridesmaid.
Yeah.
Like you're not getting ready with the girls, you're getting ready with the lads.
Yeah, did you do the breakfast on the morning of on the barbie? And
Do you know, it's really funny you say this because that wasn't the most traumatic part. I also, because I was part of the men's group, I was at their semi-stag do. So he had 2.
What's a semi-stag do?
Well, I think they had the semi-stag do to let me go to that one because I didn't want to go to the other one with the topless waitresses, right? My husband went to that one. Yeah. So we went to this night where we had a dinner and drinks like at this apartment, and it was quite weird being the only woman.
Yeah.
But it was a totally different vibe.
Did you get cufflinks and socks like we normally would for a group? What did we get?
Yeah.
What did we do? I feel like
You can't remember.
can't even remember.
I don't know, yeah,
So
some stuff.
sentimental.
Yeah, well, he did say in his 40th post the other day that weddings are a big fucking waste of time. So,
No, I took that off the.
oh, did you? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Everybody out there, I was like, this is such a good list. I was
Thanks
like,
for exposing him
This
now.
isn't about me.
I prefer the unedited version.
Yeah. All right. The next 2 are from Sam.
Obvious,
of
as well as the other 8.
Yeah. So he said that you beat him in a cricket challenge about 7 years ago, and you bring it up every day.
No, see, this is the thing about Sam. He's quite sexist. So he doesn't think that females should be able to beat males at any form of sport. And me being quite competitive, and so is he, we had a catching competition. And when I say catching, I mean a real cricket ball, high ball catch, like that is tonked as high as you can. It was down at the local park in Auckland. And I had said to him, I will beat you in a catching challenge. And he was like fobbing me off saying, you are dreaming, mate. Like there's no way, because he played for the Westlake First 11 in cricket. I too played for my First 11 and went on and played a few other. I was a wicketkeeper, so I'm used to having gloves on, to be fair. So I was a little bit like, can I still catch with just my bare hands? And I beat him at this challenge. Now, I don't bring it up, actually, but he just can't handle that he was beaten by a girl.
Yeah, amazing. Is there footage?
I think there is. I think we did film it.
Yeah.
And you should have seen him the moment he dropped that final wall, like deep, deep hurt. Yeah. He'll never let it go.
He won't. It's obviously playing on his mind that he's
fought it. The fact that he still brings it, I'd forgotten about it. You know, I've beaten him in many things. That was one.
We're going to get into some cricket chat. The last one on our list is you used to play cricket against men, and this was a question out of curiosity. Did you wear a man's box?
Oh, it's so funny you say that. No, I didn't wear a man's box. But when I was at high school, they came up with a breastplate, right? Yeah. And the breastplate, I think this was our coach at the time. He thought it would be a good idea. I think he was trying to be all new age guy. You know, if men are getting this protection, then women should as well. And this bra came with it where it had kind of a shelf that you put the shield in. The problem was it was this really hard plastic. So you imagine trying to bat with your arms out wide. And I remember trying it the first time and going, I'm like the bionic woman here. It's going to stop me getting hit, but I'm not going to score any runs. So we quickly all just went, oh, this is ridiculous. And we didn't use it again. So,
but there is a female cricket protector for your downstairs operation. I've seen them before.
Oh, you've seen them?
Yeah.
I'm glad
I worked at Northern Districts Cricket for a while.
Done the research.
Yeah. I had to, because we had some social games and I had to go out and buy them. And I didn't know that there was a difference between the two.
Who sent you out to buy them?
Well, because it was a duty of care, because we had a corporate cricket game and it was like, you can't...
It's all by the book.
Yeah, the players all had to wear helmets and like there was, there's a few swashbucklers who were like, nah, I don't need a helmet. And you're like, you do, you definitely do.
I mean, you're playing a terrible shot if you're getting hit in the pubic bone, aren't you?
Yeah,
You've really
there's some
opened
bad
yourself
cricketers
up.
out there, some bad social. Not everyone represented Central Districts and played for New Zealand A.
I've probably been hit on the pubic bone before, but I just, I didn't think it would be worth it. I can't imagine it would stop me running well between the wickets. So.
Yeah, well, we saw how the rugby ended with the first 5 of the she'll be right attitude. So maybe you should look at it.
Maybe
we tackle all the big issues on this podcast, Toni. Like, do women wear boxes in cricket? I do want to talk about your cricket career. We sort of brushed over it, but I want to actually let the listeners know to what level you played. So you represented Central Districts and went to Lincoln University on a cricket scholarship.
Yep.
You played for New Zealand A against Australia. The question is, in a different world, could you have been a white fern world champion? Like, could you have gone down that path?
I don't know. Like, I was obviously good enough at cricket to get into those teams, but I don't know if I actually had the real hardcore passion to just carry it on. I remember where I had that sort of transition year where it was, I'm going to go down this journalism path or keep playing cricket. And I remember it felt quite an easy decision because I felt so passionate about broadcasting and wanting to get into broadcasting. And I knew that kind of lit me up. As much as I enjoyed playing cricket, I couldn't imagine that as a career. Like I enjoyed playing it, but I don't think I quite had that real fire in the belly to just keep playing it week after week after week, because cricket does take a lot of your life, and it did suck up a lot of my life. We used to go to the Central Districts Under-21 New Zealand tournament every day on Boxing Day. We would leave our families on Boxing Day and would be there for New Year's. It's a lot of New Year's to miss out on as a late teen, early 20s. So I don't know. I don't know if I quite had the 100% commitment that you need.
Who were your kind of cricketing contemporaries that we might know that you grew up playing with?
Yeah, Maya Lewis. So she was one. Amy Watkins, she was Amy Mason. She went on to be one of New Zealand's greatest captains we've ever had, and she was a year ahead of me at New Plymouth Girls High School. So she was a big reason why our school team did so well. And I was a year behind her, and she was a very good friend of mine. So I feel like there was a whole group of us that kind of were a year behind her, and she was amazing, and she was playing for CD, and she played for New Zealand, captained New Zealand for many years. So I feel like she dragged a lot of us through, and there were quite a few in the same year as me as well. My Lewis, who else would have been people that I played with? So Emily Drum, Rebecca Rolls.
Good names.
Yeah.
If the Black Clash came calling, would you consider padding up again and getting involved?
That's really funny you say that, because I just got asked to be in a local version on the North Shore. And I couldn't do it because it was the same day as my netball grading, because I've gone back to try and play pre-netball this year.
Whoa.
When I say try, my body keeps getting injured. I keep pulling my calf. And, Susie Bates, by the way, is another cricketer I played with.
Yeah.
She was younger than me. Sophie Devine. I played against a lot of the current crop, actually.
Like the world champions that we're talking about that you could have been.
They were much younger than me at the time, but I remember those young bucks coming through. But you know what? If the Black Clash asked me to play, I probably would.
Good.
But I don't know if I'd be any good anymore. And then I'd have to wicket keep, because that's what I was. And keeping to some of those bowlers would be terrifying.
It's a high pressure position.
Yeah, I'd maybe
just wear the old slip
breastplate. I'd bring it back then, and the pubic cover.
Wow. Okay. That's a really, really strong start. The Toni Street story has twists and turns, right? And so approaching this long form interview, there's the part about your family and tragedy and loss, and we're kind of thinking where to place it and how to address it. So I want to talk about it now if you're open to. So there'll be listeners that don't know, there'll be some that do, but if you're able to tell us about, sort of take us back to Taranaki in the 80s and your family and sort of, what happened through the childhood years.
Yeah, so grew up as a dairy farming family. So my parents took over my grandfather's farm. So they lived next door to us. It's quite classic in Taranaki, you take over the generations. And mum and dad were quite young when they had me. I think they were maybe 23. So young, they'd just got their huge farm mortgage, and they had twins. So I'm a twin. So my brother Lance was the first twin out, and then I was second. And when he was quite young, he got quite sick, and no one knew what was wrong with him. My mum knew something was seriously wrong, but at the time, leukemia was a very kind of new and undiscovered thing, and they didn't know what it was. And then eventually he was diagnosed with leukemia, and he died when we were both 18 months old. So it was a pretty hectic start to being parents for my parents, because they had twins, first of all, which is pretty full on anyway. But they had to then go from New Plymouth to Auckland for Lance's treatment, and they had another baby, and that was me, and I would often be left with my nana. She would have to look after me for long periods of time because mum didn't want me up in the hospital, which I think was Princess Margaret at the time, which is now Starship. And dad was trying to milk cows twice a day and get this, farm off the ground. So a pretty awful start to their time having children. And unfortunately for them, it just kept hitting them in the face. So they had another child after Lance died. They tried again for another child, and Tracy was born, but she was born without kidneys, so couldn't survive. So then they were mourning the loss of two children. And then they had my brother, Stephen, and he was completely healthy. And then they had my sister, Kirsty. But when Stephen was 14 and I was 18, he died in a four-wheeler motorbike accident on our farm. So 3 children, 3 siblings I've lost, and 3 children for mum and dad.
It's unimaginable tragedy. I wonder when you do interviews like this, it's a part of your story and it kind of keeps getting brought up, but you also wrote a book about it, and I'm wondering what that process was like, actually revisiting maybe some of those buried thoughts and emotions and feelings you had.
Yeah, you do actually have to bury them, because I particularly think for my parents, like, not many people in this world have the horror of losing 3 children, and it's not something that is enjoyable to talk about, and it's actually quite an awkward dynamic being the surviving child in that scenario as well, because you kind of want to support your parents, but you're also dealing with it too, and you don't know whether if they want you to bring it up a lot or not speak about it. And I remember having that feeling as a kid, kind of not knowing where to sit in that. writing the book was really good. It was really hard, but it was kind of the first time I had sat down properly and talked about it all with Mum, and we were kind of forced to, and I found it really uncomfortable. And I think she found it good. I think, when you lose 3 children, people can't comprehend that, and it's very hard to describe the grief and the impact it has on your life. And I feel like it was almost Mum and Dad their chance to explain it a bit. Whereas, what do? You see someone on the street and they find out you've lost 3 children. You're having a brief discussion. It's not something you can talk about briefly. So I feel like the book allowed me to get a better understanding of, as much as it was difficult to hear, understanding of what it was really like at the time. I don't think I'd quite grasped that. And I think that was by design. I don't think Mum and Dad wanted my sister and I to carry that,
Marriage is hard. Raising young kids is hard. They were so young when they started. Like, what does it say about their relationship that they're still together? And what have you learned from that?
It's remarkable, really. When you think about not only the fact that they lost 3 children, but my brother died on our farm as well. And I remember when it first happened, an accident like that where, now, and I still don't even think now farmers are probably wearing helmets on their 4-wheeler motorbikes when they are meant to. The same sort of safety just didn't happen. There can be a lot of blame, and whose fault was it that he was out on his own, and was he big enough to be on that bike? And when you look at it, it was a freak accident. He wasn't even on a particularly big hill. It rolled and he couldn't get it off him. So there was no one to blame. But yeah, I look at Mum and Dad and I think they're pretty remarkable, because if you met them now, you would never know that they've had this horror time. They are very optimistic people. They are very upbeat. They're very warm. They're very loving. And they are towards each other as well. That's not to say they didn't have some pretty rough times. And I remember that as a kid. I remember that grief in those days where, everything was a bit out of control. But yeah, I think a lot of people look at them and think if they can get through that and stay together, anyone can. You can kind of survive anything.
And Stephen's passing happens at a really pivotal time in your own life, because you're 18, I think, getting ready to go down to Lincoln to take that scholarship. So you're leaving. Yeah.
It actually makes me teary.
No, of course. And take your time.
Yeah, it's really weird. All these years later, I talk about it and it still upsets me. It does.
Rightfully so.
Yeah, and it kind of catches you by surprise, because it still doesn't even really feel like it happened, which is weird because I'm 41 now. It was a terrible time for us. It really was, and terrible for a lot of reasons. For him to be the third loss, and you don't like to rank deaths of children, but when you've been with a child for 14 years and you've already suffered the death of 2, it's pretty brutal. And I had just finished school and I had to leave to uni, and that was really hard because I didn't want to leave my parents and my sister on her own either. And Mum and Dad wanted me to go, and they were like, you have to keep going, follow what you were doing. And I know that they wanted me to go, but not really. So I just remember it being I remember it just being, I don't know, it was just difficult and so many mixed feelings, and trying to kind of keep a normal life, but also thinking I'm just burying this whole thing because I'm down here at uni, and back home they're just on the farm where my brother died. And then I'd go home for school holidays, and then you'd be reminded of what you'd lost.
And outwardly, everyone we speak to comments about the energy you bring, right? The glow, and Toni is like the light in the room. And I imagine, are you still like that outwardly at that time? And is it tough sort of internally in the quiet moments at home, but outside you've still got this bright persona? I feel like I'm quite good at compartmentalizing things, so I can be very present and genuinely in a joyful state, and then in those quieter moments where you realize what you've lost, and it hits you,
I don't outwardly project that as much. Probably the people closest to me would have seen that. And I had my best friend, I went to uni, and she was a really good support at the time because she was my connection to back home as well. And so I remember having a lot of quiet moments with her and her husband, who I had been at New Plymouth Boys High School with at the time. But it's really hard to deal with because then you have the moments where you're enjoying yourself and then you feel quite guilty about that too. And you know you shouldn't feel guilty. So it's a really confusing time, and it's hard to kind of process what you're going through. But the by far the hardest part for me was feeling just so terrible for my parents and knowing that they were never going to move on from it. Yeah.
Have I got the timelines kind of right? It's around this time where you meet Matt?
Yes, yeah, it was. So I actually went to university with my high school boyfriend, and he was a great support to me around that time too because he knew my brother. But we were pretty different people, and it kind of fizzled out at the end of first year of uni. And I had actually met Matt as part of a wider friend group earlier, and then I got together with him in the second year of uni. And part of the reason we bonded initially was because he had lost his father when he was 14 to cancer, and his dad had that for a long time. So he knew what the grief was like, and you know he was only 4 years post losing his dad. So I remember we had some really big sort of deep chats about that, and I remember thinking this person actually, you know, gets what I'm going through as well. So that was one of the early things we connected about too.
It's such a strong bond, eh? It's such a strong connection piece.
Yeah, it really is.
Thank you for taking us through. I'm sorry, sort of brought out the emotions.
Sorry.
Thank you for taking us down that path.
And it's actually, as much as it's upsetting, it's actually, I quite enjoy remembering. Like it's something that I think you don't do very often in our busy, fast-paced life. And I think sometimes it's good to remember what you've come from and what's happened in your life to kind of ground you and remind you of what you're doing with your life and what direction you want to go in. Because I think you can get very caught up with just the humdrum of everyday life and what matters and what doesn't.
Yeah, I wondered about that dynamic because talking about Stephen is remembering him, right? And bringing him back, and it can be sad and it can obviously be quite emotional, but you're still, you know, you're thinking of him.
Yes, yeah, and it's actually nice, and I think I'll probably feel better after this interview for doing it, that's for sure.
That's good. Okay, so I want to move into sort of the career. So you do commerce at Lincoln, you get a postgraduate diploma in journalism at Canterbury Uni, then you join TVNZ as an intern in 2006. Why journalism? What was it about journalism that caught your attention?
It was probably more the sports side, to be honest, because I was sports mad and I was actually a bit of a performer as well. Like I loved being on stage and singing and dancing, and if there was a talent quest, I was like, absolutely, we're going in there. Not that I thought I was amazing. I just loved the whole process of it. You know, I was in my school rock band, and I was naturally quite good at speeches at school, just that kind of public-facing, you know, entertainment-y vibe. So for me, those two passions, combining sport and that side of my personality, sports broadcasting really appealed. Like I used to watch April Idemir on the news, Bernadine Oliver Kirby, and those two were my dream scenario. I was like, if I could be on the side of a netball court, on the side of a rugby pitch, commentating on a game, like that is the dream job. Like they would not feel like work for me. And I remember I knew that from a very young age, probably intermediate. Yeah.
Your friend Sophie, I spoke to her and I was like, what's Toni like at school? Like, and she's like, she just knew everything about sport. Like she just knew everything, you know? And I asked, like, could you see the path that she would go down with, you know, where you've got to now? And she's like, yeah, like you could see it. Like she just had that way, that manner, but also that knowledge.
Did she record your first piece to cam or help you with your first piece to camera?
Probably. Oh, actually, my first One News story, she was involved in actually. So Sophie was my friend that I met in my first year of intermediate. And then when I got the internship at TVNZ, or actually slightly before that at broadcasting school, I had to put in a video piece. And so quite dramatic. She had collapsed during a half marathon that her and I ran in together with overhydration, and overhydration wasn't a common thing.
Just drinking too much water.
Too much water that flushed out the salts, and she ended up in intensive care. It was quite dramatic. She's fine now. Yeah. But it was a great story. And I remember when we had to do a video assignment, I thought, that is the story I'm going to tell. And I put that in as my assignment. And then when I got to TVNZ as an intern, we were able to suggest stories, and I suggested it, and that was the first story I had on One News. I wasn't allowed to voice it because I was a baby reporter. Ruani Pereira voiced it for me, and I saw her recently, and she was like, I remember I stole your story. So my best mate was featured in this One News story, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
When you arrive at TVNZ, is it everything that you'd hoped for?
I don't think I knew what to expect, but I remember vividly the day I walked through those doors, and I'd gone out with mum and dad, and I'd bought what I thought was a TVNZ outfit, like a blazer, like a new skirt. And I just remember being like, this isn't so intimidating. You, little girl from New Plymouth, walk through the front doors, and it was all kind of shiny and new. And that part was probably exactly what I thought. The reality is quite different, what you have to do in those early days. You know, I did the overnight shifts, the 11 at night till 7 in the morning. Grueling. You sit there and you monitor the police and the fire scanners, and you put in the sports records. They had tapes back then, sounding so old. And you're on your own in the newsroom overnight. So I think the variety of what I had to do was quite different to what I expected, but so much of it was really cool. Like, one of the first people I walked in and saw was Peter Williams, who I'd listened to doing the cricket commentary and hosting One World of Sport. And I just went, I can't believe I'm in the same newsroom as Bernadine Oliver Kirby, Peter Williams, people like that I'd grown up watching. It was quite surreal.
I love hearing stories about the early days, because people will see Toni Street now and think, oh, look at it, you know, she's sort of got it all, whatever. She's risen to the top of her field. But that's the graft, right? It's those overnight shifts. It's doing the dog work. It's getting the coffees. It's kind of like just learning and soaking up for all the expertise from the people around you.
Yeah, and I feel like I was really like a puppy. I was like, I'll do anything. What do you want me to do? I'll go and be your lackey. I'll go out to that. I'll go. And I actually got I feel like my first real break was when the Commonwealth Games were on, and most of the sports team had gone overseas. And so they had a really skeleton staff back in Auckland, and they needed someone to go out to the Blues. The Super Rugby was on. And I was like, this is my time. Like, I felt confident enough that I knew rugby inside and out. And I have my parents and my grandparents to thank for that, because they are all psycho on sport. And we were all commentating games live every time there was a game on. So they'd helped me accumulate this knowledge over the years. And so I got to go out that day, and I interviewed people like Mills Muliaina, and I had to do all these interviews and grabs. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I knew that I could ask them some intelligent enough questions. And I came back with the tape, and it must have been okay, because then they let me go out more and more and more, and eventually it turned into a job on the sports desk. So I was terrified of doing it, but kind of glad that I was prepared to put my hand up and not just go, oh God, that's too scary.
Yeah. And along the way, you also get the opportunity to attend Commonwealth Games and Olympic Games and those like multi-sport mega events. What was the first one that you went to?
The Beijing Olympics in 2008. And it is still one of the greatest events I've ever been to. It was mind-blowing. I was on the finish line when Usain Bolt was breaking his 100 and 200 metre records. I was in the pool when Michael Phelps was winning all his gold medals. I was at the rowing arena when Hamish Bond and Eric Murray were getting gold. It was just the most incredible experience, and I will never forget it. And I remember thinking, I'm so lucky to be here. You know, the bird's nest, it was just so impressive. And I was in China. You know, I'd never been to China. I was like, I cannot believe I'm here. And you have to work very hard on those trips. People probably don't realise you are working like morning till night, but it is still one of the best trips I've ever been on.
Shay's got in the notes here, and I don't know what this is. Did you slip on the stairs and fall over in front of the Irish media at a Rugby World Cup in these early-ish years?
Oh, I did. So that was, I can't remember what year it was. What was the year we had the Rugby World Cup here? It was probably
2011.
11, yeah. And I was actually in New Plymouth, my hometown, covering the Irish rugby team in some of their early rounds. And we were at the Grand Central Hotel in New Plymouth, and they were all there, all their supporters were there. And you know how you have... when you wear pants and sometimes they're a little bit long for you, and there was a little hole on the side, and what happened is I put my heel in that hole, and then it basically like hog-tied me and I just spat onto the ground. It was so embarrassing. Like all of those top rugby players there, and I just didn't even look back. I just like quickly got up and I just hopped in the car and I just went, but they did see, because I remember at the training the next day, one of them brought it up.
Did they ask if you were all right, or they just
I
saw you fall?
No, they were like, we saw you. They just wanted to let me know that. Yeah, so it wasn't my finest hour.
I want to move into TVNZ. So, I want to move to 2012. Did you kind of, if I got it right, that you kind of got your break in doing a Saturday version of Breakfast with Ronan, Christy and Sam, and that was kind of like the start of the snowball into getting into prime time?
Yeah, I feel like that was the crossover from sports reporting and presenting to news. And I maintain that anyone that goes into sports reporting has a natural advantage, because in sports reporting, you get to do a lot of hosting and live work earlier than news people. So prior to that, I had been down at the tennis as a roving reporter. I had hosted the Silver Ferns coverage. So you don't get those opportunities when you're a general news reporter, whereas we had one sport back then. So TVNZ had a lot of live sports coverage, and I loved that. I travelled the country doing ANZ Championship for netball. So you kind of got to hone those live skills, whereas most news reporters, you're doing pre-packaged stuff. Yes, you might get a 30-second live in your story, but it's not long, whereas I was doing, hour-long sports coverage. So by time I got the opportunity to, it's not audition, I'm talking of my theatre kids, to have a go at the breakfast show, I'd already had a lot of live experience. So I feel like I was really lucky that sport was my path. And I started filling in actually for Petra Baggist on breakfast. And I tried it the first couple of times. They obviously thought I was okay. So I started filling in for her every second Friday because she had a 9-day fortnight. Great negotiating from Petra.
Good on Petra.
So I did that. And then I don't know how the idea for Saturday Breakfast came about, but they decided that that's what they were going to do. Ronan Christie was filling in for Corin Dan at the time. So they basically took the two fill-ins, decided they would create a Saturday Breakfast show, and they plucked this weather presenter from Sticky TV, which was Sam Wallace. And that's when I met Sam, and we got to do the Saturday Breakfast show, which was 7 till 9. Such great hours. I loved that show. And it was a mix between your normal breakfast Monday to Friday, but it had a bit more of a magazine component. So we'd do a bit of cooking, and because it was probably a mix of Good Morning and Breakfast, because it was your Saturday morning. I reckon they should bring it back. Yeah. It was so great.
I'm giggling at the cooking thing, because there was something that I referenced, which was there was like Swedish meatballs being cooked in the studio one morning.
I remember what you were going to say here.
Well, you may as well take the words out of Rawdon's mouth.
I've been spelling your balls all morning. I don't know if he planned to say that or whether he said that on accident, but it was, if there had been social media at the time, like proper TikTok, it would have gone out as a meme. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. But we had such a lot of fun. And Rawdon, Sam and I, and Nadine Chalmers-Ross was the news editor at the time, we just formed such a cool bond. There's nothing like working on the weekend together when it's all quiet and no one else is around, and we just got to do crazy challenges. And eventually we did that, I think only for a year, and then they basically moved the whole Saturday team and we became the weekday team, which was pretty cool.
I spoke to Anthony Stevens, your former producer for many years, and I kind of asked him about, as you were coming through the ranks, like what were the murmurs around TVNZ? Like, did everyone know that Toni was the one, like she was going to go right to the top? And he's like, yeah, you could see it quite early on, like in that Saturday morning breakfast, and then obviously you got the weekday breakfast thing. Did you know it yourself? Did you think, I'm quite comfortable here, I'm really good at it? Like, did you have that confidence?
I feel like I had the confidence when it came to the sports reporting, and I did get the opportunity relatively early to fill in as a presenter on One News for Sport. So Jenny May Clarkson, she is now, good friend of mine, and Andrew Saville were the two main sports readers, and I ended up being the fill-in for them. And I felt like I was confident in that space. I knew my sport, and I thought, yep, I've got this. I probably wasn't so confident in the news space just because I was the sports person, and I didn't really think of my future in general news, or, I thought of it as sport's going to be the path that I'm on. So when I got asked to fill in the very first time on breakfast, and I remember this very clearly because I was in the car and I was driving home from Taranaki, the 4.5-hour drive back to Auckland, and I got asked to fill in the next day. And I remember going, oh my gosh, like in the car, I'm not even at home to do my prep, and this is, suddenly you're preparing interviews to talk to the All Blacks or the Silver Ferns or the Warriors, and suddenly you're preparing to interview the Prime Minister, and you're talking to CEOs, and it's quite different. It's quite a different space to get your head around, and I felt like it was much more serious space than what I'd been operating in. So I probably had a little bit of a crisis of confidence because I was the sports person. But the first day I did breakfast, I loved it. I went, this is actually better than anything I've been doing, because I get to sit here live, and I just loved that dynamic of being able to say what you wanted, and it was all live, and then it all just happened, as opposed to having to, do a shoot, wait, edit script, which was great. But I felt like I knew from that first show that the live stuff was what I had the potential in, because I felt like it was very conversational, which kind of lent to my personality. So I didn't know that I was going to be amazing at it, but I knew I liked it. Yeah.
There must have been is there a great sense of satisfaction that once it's done as well?
Yes.
It's like once you're done, whatever that clock ticks over, then you're out for the day?
That is the one thing I love about daily shows. And I love that still about my radio job now. As you do your show, it's done, and then you move on to the next one. You're not doing like a monthly show, and I'd be bad at that, because then you've got to be really good with your time management, and I'd procrastinate. I'm better with daily deadlines, just get it done.
Yeah.
It's incredibly varied as well, the breakfast space, because you are, as you say, talking to prime ministers and CEOs, and you must have some confidence because you're also singing songs to the actual artists, in front of the actual artists.
We did that so many times. I don't know whose idea it was to do that, but I loved that variety. And I don't know if you're referring to, I sung with Ronan Keating, and I sung with Dolores from the Cranberries. Who else did we sing to? I just can't believe they even allow that. Like, why would they allow that?
What was that? What, are you singing with them or singing to them?
It's like carpool karaoke before carpool karaoke was a thing.
I think the time with Ronan Keating, he had to, because we did these challenges on breakfast. It was Rod and Christie versus me, and every week we would film a challenge, and it was to kind of see who was the overall winner. And in this particular day, we thought, we'll do a singing challenge where Ronan has to judge our singing. And it's honestly, the idea of it was okay. And then you're standing in front of this guy singing his song back to him. It is so cringe.
It's great TV though. Like, it's a good idea. I would watch the shit out of it.
I don't
Is it available still?
It's probably there somewhere.
Archives.
But and the reason we sang to Dolores, so sad that she's since passed, but was because that was a bit of a full circle moment, because I used to sing Zombie, her song, in my school rock band. So that's why they
Smoke-free rock quiz, is that what we're talking?
Yeah. And so that's why they got me to do it that day. But she was divine. I mean, Ronan was great too. He played along. And I think he was always just going to pick me because he quite likes the ladies.
When they're queuing up Zombie, are you like, I've got this in my back pocket, I can nail this?
No, I'm thinking to myself, I sounded terrible as an intermediate student singing this song. It's quite a droney song.
Yeah.
Zombie. Like, I was like, this is not going to go well. Exactly. It's quite creepy.
Yeah. Like, how long?
That's what I do.
And she was, do you know what? My saving grace is that me going, was not worse as Warden going, and he was terrible.
Do you both sing it in its entirety as well? Like, is she having to sit through two performances?
No.
We did have to do it separately, but you've got to go listen to Warden, because he also did terrible facials with it, and it just made it so much worse.
It's good. It's good. It's good.
So when I was speaking to Anthony, I sort of asked like what stood out to him as like a highlight of these sort of years, and he highlighted the Boston Marathon bombing, as absolutely exceptional. He said your ability to pivot from sort of being a broadcaster and a presenter to hosting this rolling coverage, getting thrown in at rolling coverage of a very delicate matter where the story is developing and unfolding. Does that stick out to you as memorable?
It does, actually. Those mornings do. I remember that, and I also remember a day where I was on when we were waiting for the smoke and the new Pope to be announced. I feel like those shows were probably where I thrived the most, because it was live and it was happening in the moment, and it's not all preordained, and I feel like that's the kind of television and probably radio that I like best. So as much as they were like shocking stories, I felt like I had quite a lot of empathy to bring to those situations as well. And I don't know if that's what my family has been through, but I felt like, no, I'm the right person to do this. I definitely had that sense. And it was a challenge and it was shocking, but those shows go so fast because you suddenly have to pivot and it's all happening around you. And to be honest, I was one of the reporters back in the Auckland newsroom when the Christchurch Quakes happened as well. And I was a sports reporter at the time, but when that happened, everyone turned into general news reporters. And I remember that day feeling the importance of having to deliver these stories, great scripts. And it's a weird thing. You don't say you enjoy it, but you understand how important your role is. And I think on both those days, I understood what I needed to do and I just did it. Yeah.
It's a little nuts and bolts here, but when you are in those live evolving situations, are you scribbling notes to yourself or are you just in the moment saying what's coming to your mind, or a combination of both?
Well, a lot of the time you actually don't get the opportunity to scribble notes because you are looking at the camera and you are delivering things that people are telling you in your ear. And when I talked about the live sport being a real great sort of platform, that is what happens with live sport. And I remember being really shocked when I first started hosting the Silver Ferns coverage, which was at 7:30 after the news, prime time, that I would have the directors all in my ear whilst I was trying to deliver the intro. And I remember I actually said to them, I was like, is this what people do? Like, are you just going to jabber in my ear the whole time while I try and deliver the lines? And they said, yes, because if something changes or we have to cut, you need to know instantly and we can't wait to deliver the... So I just had to get used to that. So I had to get used to it for sport. So when it came to live breaking news and that was happening, a lot of the news reporters aren't used to it because they operate in closed comps where they only get messages delivered to them when they push a button. But I was used to it from sport, so I found like it wasn't a new thing for me. So I got used to it. That's not saying it's not hard. It is really hard because you're trying to process what they're saying, and it's important. You know, people are dying, and you do not want to say anything that's going to upset anyone. And you don't want to give any false information either. So yes, we would furiously scribble in the ad breaks, and when you got a spare second, when you threw to a clip, and you could quickly write things down. But quite often you're having to react and not show that you're processing information on your face, you know, like I'm not listening, I'm actually delivering words at the same time, and you get better at that as you do it.
I feel like this leads quite nicely into the America's Cup in 2013 because this seems like another one of these sort of like pivotal moments, experiences in your career.
Yeah.
Where you go over thinking it's for a few days, right? And it turns into 6 weeks.
Oh, I know. So Ant Stevens, who you mentioned, he was the executive producer at time at TVNZ, and he was also an ex-sports reporter. So he had produced with me on Sport, and now we were both on Breakfast together, which was really cool because we had already worked together, we had a good bond, and then he was my producer on Breakfast, and we both loved our sport, and we spent a lot of time trying to convince TVNZ that we needed to go to San Francisco to cover the America's Cup, and no, we're not going to spend the money, you know, I don't think they quite understood how big it was going to be. TVNZ had the coverage, yes, Martin Tasker and Pete Montgomery, they were all over there, but
Such
whether you actually send your TV show is another thing entirely. And we said, well, you got 2 sports reporters here, send us over, and they made a last minute decision. So I think we found out on the Friday and we left on the Sunday, bearing in mind I had my first child, a very young child at home. So that was a big deal. I never left my baby before, but I was like, you know, it's only going to be 3. I think we were up 7-1.
Yeah.
And you know, it was a fait accompli. We're about to win the America's Cup. Cool, we'll go in, we'll get all the money shots of us celebrating, and then we'll get home. And they said yes. We went over to San Fran, and as we now know, every day we kept losing. And not only did we keep losing, but things kept delaying it. You know, there was no wind, so they had a lay day. And then Team New Zealand famously voluntarily took a break day, which was a terrible decision in hindsight, which gave Oracle the chance to sort out what was happening. And then they came back and just kept winning and winning and winning. So that was cool because as much as we were losing, it meant that we had to come up with stories every day, and I had to not only host the breakfast coverage because this was an unusual sporting event and it started to feel like it was going to be the biggest comeback anyone has ever had in sport, and I think it was, probably still is to this day. I got flipped on to hosting the coverage as well, and because I'd had the sports background, I did breakfast, I helped with the coverage, and I was doing tracks for the 6 o'clock news. So I mean, I loved the fact that we were able to do that, but it was a double-edged sword because I started really missing my daughter, because it ended up being over 3 weeks that we were there. And, you know, it was meant to be 3 days. And when you're away from your young child, like Juliet was 10 months old and it was coming close to her first birthday, I was like, I'm not going to be the mum that misses my child's first birthday. And so I remember having some really teary moments. And my mum and dad were up helping my husband, and Juliet she was happy as, but I struggled to cope with it. And it was also, we were having to interview the families. Like, I remember interviewing Mandy Barker every day when they lost, and Dean Barker obviously was very emotional because they kept losing, and then when they lost the cup, it was just unimaginable that they had it in the grasp of their hands, and then we lost it. So it was definitely a moment in sporting history that was cool to be part of, but it was very delicate.
I was working at the Herald at the time as a sports journo, and the audience on this was huge.
Yep.
And it was prime time, right? It was like 7 a.m.
Yes.
till 9. So it was like the live blogs we ran were the biggest audiences that we had from anything, way bigger than All Blacks games, because it was just in that perfect time. You're there hosting, I imagine it was the biggest audiences for TVNZ as well.
It
and
was.
You're the face of it, and you're nailing it, and you're giving it the Toni Street treatment. Did you notice your profile rising across those weeks? Like, did everything start sort of blowing up?
I think when I was there, we were in such work mode because we were delivering to so many different shows. Because normally, I mean, when you go on, probably back in those days, you'd only go for your own show, right? But because I was doing the breakfast show and then doing the coverage and then doing the news, there was really no time to soak any of that in. I was just focused on doing my job and doing it well. And it wasn't probably till I came home that I realised how big the numbers were. Yes, we got feedback, and you'd look at it just before you went to bed and be like, okay, good, I'm not getting trolled too badly today. But when we got back, we understood how massive it was. And I feel like it did feel like the entire country was watching it. And when I think about it now, we needed to be there. Like, that was in our breakfast slot. It couldn't have been better for breakfast TV to be there on the ground. So I'm glad they made the decision to send us, because it did feel like everyone was watching. And I do remember all the tally records were smashed. Yeah.
And sort of said your superpower in that situation, because it was unfolding as well, was the ability to wing it.
Yep.
Like, what does winging it mean in that situation?
I guess winging it, you have to have a good knowledge beforehand. And sailing wasn't one of the sports that I knew naturally. I was like, of all the sports, you know, I felt like rugby, netball, cricket.
I don't think anyone knows sailing naturally.
No, which is actually quite good.
Yeah.
Because it meant that, you know, everyone needed to know what jibing was. You know, it wasn't just a natural term.
It was jiving as well sometimes. It's different.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't say that. So I had to do quite a lot of prep before that. I remember furiously going, I need to get myself across all these sailing terms. But I think what was really good is the sailors are very easy to talk to, and they're really personable, and they kind of understand that not everyone knows their sport and it's quite specialised. So I felt like I had lots of conversations with them. So I kind of knew how the camp was feeling. They really opened up the camp to us, even actually when they were losing. They were really good at giving us access, I think because TVNZ were the rights holders, so I had that advantage. So I guess winging it just is trying to convey the feeling, what it was like on the ground, and just knowing who your audience was. Everyone at home, they've just woken up. They want to get the wrap of the day. They want to know what the feeling is. They want to know how poor old Dean Barker is feeling and how he's coping with the villain Jimmy Spittle. So I feel like that was such a clear narrative that it was quite easy to talk about. And my job really wasn't to be the expert. Mine was to facilitate the experts. So I had the Martin Taskers, the Pete Montgomerys, the Grant Daltons on to talk about everything. My job was just to make sure that everyone understood what they were saying and facilitate. So really, it was no different to any other live job, but it was just, we had this amazing script where you had this villain and our hero, Dean Barker, and the villain was slowly chipping away at him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you come back to New Zealand, New Zealand sort of fallen in love with you, and then the 7 Sharp gig is soon after that. Like, is that kind of how the transition happened?
Yeah.
And do you remember that?
I'm trying to remember what year I went to 7 Sharp, because I was actually only
14.
Thank you. I was actually only on breakfast TV for 1 year, like full time, which I remember that was actually when I got offered the 7 Sharp job, I didn't actually want to take it, because 7 Sharp, if you remember, the first year of it was a bit of a failure for everyone involved. And that's not to say the people on it weren't great broadcasters, but the concept wasn't well received and they just didn't quite, it had a lot of teething problems and the ratings weren't great. So it was kind of seen as a bit of a poison chalice. And I had been filling in on breakfast. I had done Saturday breakfast and it had done really well. And I'd finally got the big gig of doing full-time breakfast with Sam and Ronan, who I got on with awesome, and Ant Stevens was my executive producer. So I was really happy where I was. And then they said, we want to take you off that show and put you on 7 Sharp. I was like, oh, really? Really? I know it's deemed as, because in Tallyland, prime time is deemed as where everyone wants to be, but I didn't really want to be there. I was like, I actually really love this gig.
Is it the kind of job you can say no to once your bosses come and say, we want to do this?
I didn't feel like I could say no to it because I did say that at the time. I didn't say, no, I don't want it. I said, oh, really? I've only just started on breakfast. I've had this great year. The team's going well. I also felt very loyal to Sam and Ronan, and I was well aware that I was breaking up, which was quite a winning formula. So I felt a bit bad about that. Well, it wasn't my fault because they'd told me I had to leave, but you know what I mean? So I did have really hard discussions with the bosses that asked me because I was like, oh, I feel like this is not great for me. Why would I move from a show that's going really well to a show that's not? And they said, well, that's exactly why we want you to move, because we feel like something drastic needs to change. This is our primetime slot. This is way bigger ratings. I remember them telling me. I was like, oh, yeah, but I feel like I'm, going to I never dreamed in a million years that I would be on the 7 o'clock slot. I grew up watching Paul Holmes, Susan Wood, Mark Sainsbury, and I never thought that would ever be a show I'd be on. So it was quite surreal to be getting offered the 7 o'clock slot. And I also didn't know whether we would be able to turn it around because there was a lot of negative sentiment towards the 7 Sharp show as well. And I thought, oh, God, But I felt like I had to say yes to it, and I knew I would need a really strong person to do it with, and I think Mike Hosking was absolutely the right person because...
Yeah, what stage did that relationship get put together? Are they like, you're going to be on 7 Sharp, you're doing it with Mike?
No, they said, we want you to be on it, who do you want to host with? And I actually said at the time, I feel like there's only 2 people that can turn this around for you guys, and it's either Mike Hosking or Paul Henry. I felt really strongly about that because I felt like they needed someone, a reason to watch.
Yep.
And whether you love or loathe Paul and Mike, they were appointment type viewing, right? And I remember them saying to me at the time, oh, that's not going to happen. They'll be too expensive. And then Mike got the job. So I don't know what happened there. But, and obviously they had to want to work with me. So I was lucky that Mike wanted to.
Have you met him or crossed paths with him? Like, what was your interactions with him before you sitting on a couch at 7 o'clock?
No, I didn't know him. I knew his wife, Kate Hawkesby, because she'd worked at TVNZ. Briefly, we had some crossover. She was hosting the late news when I was there. It's not true. Mike had been in the newsroom filling in for Close Up for Mark Sainsbury before. So I'd had some pleasantries passing by, but I didn't know him at all. But I just knew that he was the type of person that people would turn into. And I also knew that I needed someone to offset how I was going to be. You don't want 2 people the same. And I knew we needed someone that was going to be possibly a bit controversial, that people were going to love or loathe, because I felt like my job was going to be to bring the warmth and hopefully the positive vibes.
That's so cool that you know your strengths going into a role like that and to be able to advocate for what is going to work.
Yeah, and I didn't think they'd get Mike to do it. So I was really pleased when they came back and said that he was going to host the show because I had a feeling we would have good chemistry.
Yeah, I just watched the interview of the last show you did together at the end of the 4 years, and he got quite emotional at the end, and he called you guys the best duo in broadcasting.
I love it. Rate yourself.
But I wondered how you reflect on working with Mike. What is he like to work with? What is his method? How did you guys sort of figure it out?
Yeah, well, I didn't really know what to expect. I remember being a young reporter in the newsroom and thinking every time he filled in on Close Up, I felt like it was a really good show. So I knew he had that serious kind of edge to his news that I think 7 Sharp needed, because I felt like it had gone too far away from why people liked Close Up. So I knew he had that. I knew he had rated well. And the moment I met him, like, he is a no frills kind of character. You know, he was also on Newstalk ZB, so he was working double shifts. So he'd said yes to this, and that meant he was going to be getting up at 3 a.m. and then he was going to be coming at night. So he wanted to get in, do his job. He doesn't like any faff, none of the touchy-feely stuff, which is probably what I bring. So I found him really straightforward to work with. I knew where I stood with Mike. It would come to an interview and he'd go, "Do you want to do it? I don't mind." Like, he was very giving in that respect. And he's really funny in his sort of acerbic way. So I found him, he would absolutely take the mickey out of me. You know, like I remember I was on a bit of a health kick and I had my carrot sticks and my little piece of, not the keto gummies. I had my carrot sticks and my little bottle of peanut butter, and he's like, "Do you reckon that's going to help you?" And I'm like, well, it's better than me eating a donut. But I kind of enjoy that. And I come from a family that gives each other stick a lot. So I enjoy that. I feel like people have lost the ability to laugh at themselves and not take things personally. And you had to not take things personally with Mike because he just threw them at you. But I loved that. I looked forward to my afternoons because I was like, what's he going to say now? He's so inappropriate. And at one stage, he's trolling you for your afternoon tea. The next minute, he's telling me about his bloody Gucci loafers and his new fragrance and what wine he's drinking that night. And I'm pretty sure he looked at me like, "Oh dear, you don't even know what my wine is," because I'm like the basic girl from the farm. But we had that dynamic where I gave him stick for being a Remawera type, and he gave me stick for being the basic girl from the farm, and it worked. And I really enjoyed it. And he doesn't get on with everyone because Mike does his job and he doesn't have all the frills around the edges. But I found him really easy to get on with, and our relationship and chemistry was instant from the first photo shoot we went to.
He doesn't get on with everyone, but you get on with everyone. Like, it feels like is there anyone you don't get on with?
I don't think so.
Yeah, you've got that magic ability.
What I try to do, and I think this is why some of the duos I've worked with in broadcasting work, is I try and make the relationship work. And I think you have to, right? If you want a show to be successful, there has to be chemistry. And whatever it takes to make that chemistry as good as it can be, I feel like I'm quite happy to bend and mould to. You know, working with Mike Hosking was very different to working with Ronan Keating, very different to working with Sam Wallace. You all have different dynamics, and you've just got to find what that commonality is and what that chemistry is going to be like. And I enjoy doing that. I enjoy sort of changing and morphing to make it work.
Yeah. But with an underlying theme of warmth. That's the brand.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah. And I don't think there's anyone that I don't get on with. I mean, there's people that I like more than others, of course. Yeah. But I don't know. Everyone's got a quality that you can bring out, right?
Very much so. You're still in the same building with Mike at NZME?
Yes.
Are you guys still keep in touch? Do you bump into each other?
Do you know Mike Hosking? Yeah. He doesn't keep in touch with anyone. No. I used to text him on his birthday after 7 sharp, but then I changed phones and I kind of lost his number. So now if I want to get in touch with him, I DM Kate, his wife, and say, "Hey, will Mike do this? Da-da-da-da." If I saw him now, we would catch up and we'd chat, and he'd ask how the kids are and I would ask how his are, but we don't catch up all the time.
All done in 2 minutes.
He's too busy. Yeah. He's too busy watering his, mowing his grass and cleaning his pool and watching the Warriors.
Yeah. So at the end, you're the one that leaves, right? Like it was your decision to leave, and then he sort of left as well. But what was behind your decision to get out? Mine
was a hard decision because I really liked being on that show, and we had a really good team as well. Like a great bunch of reporters, great bunch of producers, and it felt like such a good fit with what I enjoyed doing as well. And it was quite straightforward. And the hours weren't punishing like when you do breakfast TV or radio. But I got 3.5 years in, and suddenly my daughter was about to start school, my eldest daughter. And I remember thinking, how's this going to work? I get to 7 sharp at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So I'm not going to be there when she finishes school. Whereas previously I would see her during the day. So I'm not going to be there at school pickup. And then I'm in a job that doesn't finish till 7:30. So by the time I get home, it's after 8. She's going to be in bed. So I'm not going to see my daughter apart from a tiny window in the morning. And actually by then I had started doing radio. I had started doing radio in the morning. So actually I wasn't going to see her in the morning either. I was like, this is completely unacceptable. Like, I'm not going to cope. She'll probably be fine because she'll be with her dad and she'll be with, Nana and Granddad, but I'm not going to see her in the morning. I won't even be there to put her to bed. I was like, and I just remember feeling this, feeling like this is not going to work. Like, something's going to have to change because I'm not going to cope. I want to see my daughter grow up, So I had to make a decision. It was either I gave up the radio that I'd been doing for a year, because by this point I'd been asked to do a radio show and I was doing it from home. So it was only kind of like just
dipping your toes in.
Just dipping my toes in. So, but then I thought, well, if I don't do the radio show, I'm still only going to see her for an hour in the morning as I drop her off at school. And then I'm still not going to see her after school, and I'm still not going to be putting her to bed. I'll see her on the weekends, and it just wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. So that basically made the decision really clear to me. I actually went and saw one of those career counsellors. I had to talk it through because no one leaves prime time telly. You don't do that.
And you're New Zealand's TV Personality of the Year at that stage as well, right? 2017, you'd won that award.
Yeah, I had. Yeah, you're right.
So you're like peak of your powers.
Yeah, and kind of also, once you've bedded in a show and you're 3.5, 4 years in, it becomes so much easier. The hard graft is in those first 2 years where you're trying to find out the chemistry and you're trying to make it work. But we already had this great audience and it was working. So you're kind of coasting along at that point, and it's just everything's working and you get your routine with your kids and your family. So I was like, oh, am I really going to blow all this up? And what if I say no to this? And then that's just the end. That's just the end of my broadcasting career, and radio might not work out, and then TV doesn't want me back. And I was like, oh, well, I'm going to have to do it because the alternative is I'm not seeing my child, and that's not acceptable to me. So I went and talked to TVNZ and said, look, I think I can't do the late shift anymore. I can't do the 7 o'clock shift. And I think they were like, what do you mean? And that's just how it happened. And so I left and I stayed filling in on 7 sharp, which was great because I was able to just keep my hand in. I think I filled in for about 4 years. And then I made the switch to radio. And then slowly now, after 6 years in radio, I feel like I'm finding my feet.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about the move into radio and the sort of the different dynamic of it and how it's different and why it's different and what your show looks like now.
Well, breakfast radio is actually the greatest likeness would be breakfast television, because you are covering sometimes more serious topics. Sometimes you're doing, like this week, I dressed like a bunny rabbit mascot and collected Easter eggs. You still do all those crazy things that I did on breakfast telly. The difference is, obviously, we're not a serious news station on music radio, so it's not like News Talk ZB even. We do actually interview the Prime Minister sometimes, but there's no expectation on certain things have to be asked anymore. So you come up with so much more of the content. It's all self-driven. So if I want to talk about going into early perimenopause, I can talk about that. If I want to talk about the bake sale, I can talk about that, or the girls that I'm coaching at netball. So there's a lot more freedom in radio to talk about what you want, which I've actually really enjoyed. And to start with, that was quite hard because you're kind of minding your life going, oh, will people care about that? I don't know if they will. Will that be a good story? Whereas now I know what will work, and it's become a lot easier. So I love the sense of control you have in radio. Television is much more sorted out by other people. So producers and the lineups, and then you just adapt your style to that. Whereas radio, you're creating the whole thing from scratch. Particularly the three of us on Coast, like we do it all. We work out the way we want to morph the show, and we have slots and we decide what we want to do. So I quite like that because I am a bit of a control freak.
And like Sam Wallace has kind of been a almost a constant through your career, right?
I know, he just won't go away. It's really annoying.
Which way does it work?
He will tell you, his famous thing is he goes, yeah, I just sidled up to Toni and everything just works out. But no, Sam is so talented. He really is. I knew that from when he joined us on Saturday Breakfast. I was like, this guy's awesome. He does so much groundwork. He can do everything. He shoots, he edits. He's got drones, he's got GoPros. He does everything. And he's got quite an ability to be really funny. And so I knew from the breakfast days that our dynamic worked because he's a bit like me. You can give him a flogging and he won't care. He'll give it back and he won't get offended. And I think not being offended is really key to having good chemistry, because sometimes we do actually push the limits sometimes, on certain topics we'll tease each other and it's like, oh, we probably went a bit far today. We should peg that back so that our friendship doesn't end today.
Yeah. I'm going to read some stuff Sam told us about sort of what you bring as a co-host. He said, one of the things is her ability to conceptualize content. So, for example, when the Queen died, we were live on air, and her ability to understand what's happened, form an opinion, and create a 3-minute break within moments is just something to behold. She's incredibly smart and just an incredibly strong communicator, like nothing I have ever compared to in the game. I've worked alongside a lot of people, and her ability to formulate a story and to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and to have people gasping or crying or whatever it is just amazing. She's just so clever. But it's always delivered with so much warmth. Sometimes when we're interviewing someone, she'll ask a question and I'll have a question ready to go in my head. She'll be thinking along the same lines, but she will deliver the question almost the opposite way to me, but with so much warmth that it just elicits a fearless approach from the person she's speaking to. She just has this incredible, and it's not tact, it's warmth. It comes from a genuine place, which is super, super amazing. Nice words for you.
It's really nice from Sam. I didn't know he thought all that. That's actually lovely.
Yeah. Are you aware that you've got that?
Not obviously I can do this job because I get paid to do it and I've still got a job, right? But I don't necessarily think that. I just do it. Do you know what I mean? Yep. Like you just speak. I don't have this big plan of, and he's right. My executive producer will probably go, you're supposed to have a beginning, middle, and an end. I don't plan it that way. It just formulates when you speak. It's hard to explain. It's just conversation. And I think you get better at conversation over the years and you get better at honing it and putting it into a 3-minute break like we have to on radio. But I truly feel like I'm at my best when I have good people to bounce off. And that's what I love so much about broadcasting, is having a good partner or good partners in the case of Sam and Jace. And Sam is hilarious foil that is so inappropriate sometimes, and it just is so easy to bounce off him because he will go to places no one else wants to go. And Jason's the same. Jason is he's such a character. He is a character. He is literally the nerdy dad that loves the All Blacks and he loves tomato sauce, but I know exactly what he's going to be like, and it just makes it easy. And I love connecting with people and bouncing off people and having chemistry. It's just the best feeling, and I feel lucky because throughout my career I've had a lot of people that I've been able to connect with pretty easily.
I know you've got a bake sale to get to. I want to spend some time talking about family. Like, this has been so good, Toni. I can't begin to explain how good it is.
Loving it.
Matt will hold it down. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. But the baking's probably solved.
Yeah. There's twists and turns, like we said at the start in the story, and we sort of skipped over the timeline slightly, but you got really sick at one point and it came close to dying, right?
Yeah. I had this autoimmune disease, which I didn't know was an autoimmune disease. So I started getting symptoms in my mid to late 20s, eczema and asthma out of nowhere. Like, I wasn't the asthma kid. I wasn't the eczema kid. I had nothing like that before. And I started getting these symptoms, and you go to the doctor, and I'm a bit of a, yep, right, fine. Just give me what I need. I'm not really one of these in tune with my body types. So I remember feeling like I had a bit of a burning sensation, and then I'd get a flare up of eczema, and Mum would go, have you gone and seen the doctor? And yeah, he's given me an asthma inhaler, and then you carry on, and then you have periods where your health's fine. So I didn't think much of it. But as I had my children, these symptoms really flared up. And after I had Mackenzie, my 10-year-old, so this was back in 2015, my body completely flipped out. So had her fine. 6 weeks into having my newborn, I started getting severe stomach pain, like keeled over, like what's happening to me. And I ended up in hospital, and they couldn't tell what was wrong with me, but they knew that my organs were shutting down and something really bad was happening. And then I later got scans, and I had flooding of streaking of the bowel. My gallbladder had been flooded. So essentially they eventually diagnosed me with a thing called Churg-Strauss. It's called EGPA now, because I think the guy that made it up was German. It was inappropriate, so they now call it EGPA. And essentially your white blood cells are fighting your own body, which they're not meant to do. So they flood your organs. So in the case of my gallbladder, it enlarged my gallbladder, and I had to have that removed quickly. And if they hadn't got on top of it, it could have been fatal, and people have died from it. And some people have had permanent damage. And there are people in this country that have. Daniel Vittori, the cricketer's father, has got the same condition as me, and I've since connected with him, and he's had some quite bad nerve damage from his EGPA. Unfortunately, they didn't get on top of it as quickly as me, but it can attack the blood vessels and it can impact people's hearts. So luckily for me, I was quite young when it got discovered, and because it had children, that brought my symptoms on at a rate of knocks, which was hard to deal with, but it also meant that they were able to diagnose me quicker. And so I was basically given huge steroid infusions, like 1,000 milligrams of steroid infusions, a drug called mycophenolate, methotrexate, people that have had they're anti-organ rejection drugs randomly, basically to suppress your immune system. And so I responded really well to the drugs, but the process of having those was quite yucky. Like, it made me gain a lot of weight. I puffed up like a steroid patient. Anyone that's been on big doses of steroids will know what that's like. And that was around the time that I was on 7 Sharp. So that was quite hard because I looked sick, or as some people would say, I looked like I was pregnant again, which I wasn't.
Because we spoke to Sharon Casey about the kind of this whole the show must go on situation when you are in the spotlight. Hers was for different reasons as well. But yeah, you are, for those following the timeline, on screen every night during this process.
Yeah.
Like, how hard is that the show must go on when you're in that situation?
Well, it's hard and it's not, because the alternative is you quit your job, because there's only so much sick leave you can have. And I definitely had to have sick leave a couple of times, especially when I had a really bad antibiotic reaction when I was hosting the Commonwealth Games. And I went yellow from head to toe and got a really bad liver injury, and that was a terrible time, and I had to have a lot of time off radio to get well. But if you're getting treatment, and people, you'll know lots of people now that are getting chemotherapy and they're still going to work, because the alternative is you're at home not doing, in a lot of cases, the job you love, or you're not earning your paycheck, and you're sitting at home doing what? Right? Resting. And yes, you are meant to rest, but it also means you're in your head and you're thinking about all the lost opportunities, and you don't have a focus in your life. You're not getting up and going and doing something. And for me, as a person that likes to be busy, that wasn't good for me. I was better to be going to work and to try and get rest with restrictions, right? And I was lucky that both TVNZ and NZME were really, really good. Like, they would let me go early and let me start a bit later around that time. But I found it took my mind off the fact that I was having all these treatments, and it actually gave me more than what a job was going to take away at that time. It gave me the sense of normality, and I think it was actually key to having a routine that my life didn't just exist of going to appointments and getting blood tests and going for steroid treatments. Yeah.
So you've spoken about the physical ailments, and you've opened the door a little bit there on the headspace. Has that been something that you've had to work on as well as the physical struggles that you've had?
Well, to be honest, I feel like I've never been particularly appearance orientated, if that makes sense. And I reckon that was the upbringing that we had as really sporty kids. Like, the focus was, are you going to be good at netball? What are you going to do to be good at rugby and to be good at cricket? So yes, I was like any girl. I wanted to look pretty at the disco and all of that. But I didn't have a problem going on 7 Sharp looking puffy with steroids. I really didn't, because I was sick. You know, it's like, it is what it is. You know, if I look a bit plumper than usual, well, there's a reason for that. And I actually didn't have a problem with that. And yes, you got a bit of negative feedback, but I also was able to be like, well, that's ridiculous, you know. If people knew that I was sick, and that was part of the reason that I was really open about it, you understand that that's why I look like that. And people have everyone has lots of things wrong with them. Someone has chemotherapy, they lose their hair. You know, if someone's really ill, they lose weight. So it's just a physical manifestation of not being well. And anyone that's going to mock that is not a very great human. And I knew that I would recover eventually. And so mentally, I think that side of it was fine to deal with. The hard thing is the drugs that I was taking, they made me go a little bit off how I normally would be, sometimes a bit manic. I remember joking with Hosking actually around one of the drugs I was on. It said you could have aggressive episodes. I said, you better watch it, mate. Don't push me today or I will down you, little man. We always used to joke about how if I would dominate him in a fight because, you know, he used to tell me he was like 63 kilos and all he did was cardio. And I'm over here pumping weights. And I was like, you should do weights, Mike, if you're gonna take me in a fight.
Yeah, love it. In the background, sort of working in the shadows of the career arc we've covered is Matt. And I'm hoping we can spend a bit of time talking about Matt and what he does. You know, he's the anchor at home, right? It's a little bit different to perhaps a traditional relationship where he's sort of holding things down. So tell us about what Matt's doing while you've been...
Well, thankfully, Matt's personality absolutely lends itself to being an anchor. He is like that solid as a rock, dependable, consistent type of person. And I think that's what really drew me to him when we first met, because I can be a bit all over the show and like, I've got this idea and I've got this idea. And he's like, okay, let's just calm down a bit and how are we going to do this? So we're quite opposite personalities in that respect, but we also have really shared passions as well. So he's very sporty. He played a lot of rugby. He played for North Harbour. He played some games for the Crusaders and the Chiefs. So he's had a real sporting background. So we bonded over that initially as well. As I mentioned, he's had heartache in his life, losing his father. So he's got that quite different upbringing to people that haven't lost someone, and that you really do value how quickly life can change and how things can be taken away from you. So when you have that different lens to life, it does make you, I don't know, you almost become a bit of an old soul because you know life isn't all roses from quite a young age. But when it comes to our family, he is... and all of our friends and family know this, he's the organiser of things. So he makes sure the lunch boxes are out. He makes sure the bags are packed. Like, he's better at that stuff than I am. I'm the big picture, let's do this, this, this. He is the person that makes it happen. And if anyone was going to be in charge of a bake sale, you want my husband in charge, because he's methodical. He doesn't forget things. He doesn't miss things. But he's also quite a calming presence. And I'm quite thankful for that, because we've had some rocky moments, particularly when I was sick, and I was really thankful to have a husband that was able to hold it down at home, and he's very good with children, so he had no problems doing the burping and the feeding and the changing nappies. Like, he was all over that. And I know not all men are, so I felt quite lucky that I had a husband that was probably better at it than me.
Yeah, that's a great description. I think Matt's going to enjoy hearing that. Why is it important for you to coach your kids' teams? Because you've got a lot, right? Like, it's something which you have to prioritize. That's a lot of time, trainings and games and weekends. Like, why is that important to you?
It is. It does. It sucks the life out of you. It really does. But it gives you so much as well. And I never really set out to thinking I need to coach my kids at sport. And it kind of happened by accident that, you know, I was sporty. I should probably take the netball team. That was a sport I played. And I remember when I first started doing it, I was surprised at how much I loved it. And it gives you something that's hard to describe. So first of all, you are getting to see your kids' mates all the time. So you go into the school at lunchtimes and you're doing practices, and then you've got games on the weekends, and then all the things that go with it, like bake sales and camps and tournaments. So you're getting connected with your kids' mates, which I love, because I think that's really important, and I want to know who their friends are. And I want to know their personalities, particularly as they get older. I think it's really important. And I love that sense of community. And I just felt like I could be someone that really drove that for those girls. And I think we do that. And it's not just me. Like, we've got some amazing parents that are all in. And like one of my netball managers, Nicola, she's exactly like I am. She wants the sport to be not just about that, but it's actually about our whole community. So, we'll have the kids over. Sometimes I have 30 young girls at my house doing fitness on a Sunday. And we will all go and have a meal together, or go to the movies, and we'll all do the bake sale together. And I think it fosters this sense of community. So sport is the in. And I know it was like that for me because my parents were really hands-on. My dad was the rugby coach. My mum coached netball. And I just feel like it gives you an access to your kid's life that you don't get anywhere else. And you get to see them at all different states, and you get to kind of grow up with their mates. And I just love that. I cherish it. And it will be sad when I don't get to coach anymore, but I know that's inevitable. Probably this will be the last year I coach my eldest daughter. She's off to high school next year, but that's cool too. And I'm sure I'll be able to find some way to be useful, but you don't get many years to be involved with them at that young age. And it's not even about the sport and the winning. It's just being part of something. And I think you can make it special for the kids because you know what it was like to be them. Yeah, I love it.
Is it the same for the performing arts side of it?
Well, I don't have quite the same level of expertise in that area, but it's exactly the same when it comes to being a community. And I have been wowed by the musical theatre space in New Zealand, and we've really come into it only in the last 2 or 3 years. So the kids were part of Matilda the musical that just came to Auckland, and they're doing Annie with Encore Theatre now. And I'm obsessed with it. It's amazing. Like, I'm not coaching, but I take any opportunity to be involved, whether that is the person that brings the baking in, or you get to be side of stage, or I've found my niche, which happens to be helping with hair and makeup.
I thought you were going to say background singer or something like that.
No. And definitely in the background, but just being involved. And I think you get to meet heaps of different parents that way as well. You get to connect to people you never would. And I just think everyone should try it because it's so good. You don't have to be a good coach. You just have to be a good manager of people. That's all.
And I relate so hard to everything you just said. I coach my boys' football teams.
You know it.
And I had on my list of 40 things I've learned at 40, every person that coaches kids' teams are good bastards, every single one.
They are.
There's so much goodness in it.
Yeah, and it can be really challenging. Like, there are parts of coaching I really struggle with. For example, having to put people on the bench. I agonise over combinations.
You have that problem.
It's so hard. Yeah. And you're like, oh gosh, I hope people aren't offended by this. And, and you also want to push them, but not push them too hard. And you don't want to be too soft. Like, it's actually quite a hard job. So I do think anyone that does it, you're really putting yourself out there, and it's harder than people think, but gives you so much.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to take us down the home straight. Future gazing is the subheading. Are you the sort of person who has goals for the future? Do you have 5-year, 10-year plans? Like, what do you think you'll do?
10,000 days plans. We're calling them now internally.
Do you know what? I know you're meant to be goal setters, and I've never been someone that has been particularly goal orientated. I say that, my mum will probably go, yes, you were. I know what I want to do. I know things that I want to be able to achieve, and I know things that I'm passionate about and think I'd love to do that. But I don't think I'm someone that writes it down and goes, right, I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do this. I'd say I'm more of a person that grabs hold of opportunities when they arise. And I feel like I've been lucky. I know you create your own luck, but I feel like I've been lucky because I feel like opportunities have just presented themselves, and I know when they come up, and I feel like I'm good at grabbing a hold of them because I can identify when opportunities come, and I think that's going to be awesome. I'm going to do that, and I'm not afraid of putting myself out there. I think I've got better at that as I've got older, and I just gave a speech to my old high school, and that was the one thing that I said to them is, you need to, when things get presented to you or you see an opportunity, you cannot go, oh, maybe I won't. You've got to do it because you just don't know where it will lead. And it could be something like you have an opportunity to go on the talent quest. You don't know where that's going to lead. You have an opportunity to fill in for the netball team. Where is that going to lead? And I think quite often you second guess yourself or think, oh, maybe I won't. I'm definitely not that person. I will go, yes, I'll do it. So I feel like I don't have goals, but I will snaffle up opportunities that come my way.
But that must be hard to balance, right? You must get so many opportunities thrown at you now, and brand deals and things. So do you get to a point where, like, if it's not a fuck yes, it's a no?
it's funny because I'm not good at that. I'm not good at saying no to things, but I have to get better at it because I'm at my limiter actually at the moment. Like I am scraping
She's arriving,
myself.
Matt. She's coming soon, Matt. Don't worry.
I feel like I definitely am taking on too much at the moment. So that's probably the biggest challenge for me is to work out what do I want to say no to? What do I want to definitely say yes to? And it's interesting around the sort of brand ambassador space with social media. That's hard because you do get opportunities from lots of different places, but I think sometimes the ones you say no to can be really telling, and it might mean you get something in the same space that's better, and you just have to follow. I just follow my gut. I think following your gut feeling on things is so important. And sometimes when I haven't followed my gut, I know I screwed up because I'll go, I don't want to do this. Why did I say yes to this? And I knew it at the time, and I didn't trust my gut. So trying to tune into what feels right is so important. But in terms of goals for me, I don't know. Like I think what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create a life for myself outside of radio at the moment, because as you know, media is a bit of a volatile space. So having opportunities and things outside of radio so that I've got my finger in a few different pies is probably where I'm at the moment. And whether that's in the social media space, whether I'm starting to, I have been doing a lot of emceeing. I've got a few ideas for a couple of businesses that I know I just need to do because I think they'll be successful. I just need to. I'm trying to use my commerce degree that I've never used from university.
Do you want to voice them into life now? Are they ready?
Yeah, I've got a couple ideas actually. One, I've got an idea of doing and this is in the sports realm because I'm constantly with kids in sport. I don't know if you find this, but particularly as you get preteens, they never have a decent bag to take anywhere, right? They have their school bag, and then all the kids that put stuff in my car, one's got a Woolworths bag, one's got a New World bag, one's got an old school plastic bag, and there's just bags and they're not fit for purpose. I think there needs to be like some kind of theatre/sport bag that's got all the compartments that are kind of cool in the same space as like a Frank Green drink bottle. Yeah. So I feel like I could do that. Not that I know anything about bags.
You're going to get about 20 emails from people from bag manufacturers.
Get in touch. And the other thing I had thought about doing, and I have done a little bit of this one-on-one, is sort of communication coaching.
Oh, yeah.
And that is right down from in a kid's sense where, you get kids that are terrified of doing school speeches, or they're good at school speeches and they want to elevate themselves, but their parents don't know how. Yeah. And I'm right in that space at the moment because my kids do speeches. I am a judge for a lot of schools for their school speech competition. I feel like I could be quite helpful in that space where, I don't know, there might be an online course that they take with me, instructing them and giving them tips on how to be authentic and how to get their message across. And that could potentially extend to adults that are trying to communicate via social media, communicate as a manager at work. You don't realise how many people are terrified of speaking because when you do it for a living, you take it for granted, I think, even though I still get nervous sometimes.
Jason Gunn does something similar with Easily Said. And I was just thinking as you were saying that, 2 guests that we've had on and 200 plus guests across 5 years who are the best communicators are you and Jason. So you would be the perfect person to set that up.
That's so nice. I love Jason Gunn, and I've always thought he is amazing. And they just said recently who should do the Chase New Zealand, and I thought Jason would be amazing at it. He's got quite a special quality, that guy, and I can see why he's gone down that road. And I feel like maybe there's not a female that really does it, and I think particularly for that younger age group, because that skill is so important for, even if they don't end up doing anything in broadcasting or media, every job now, if you're good at it, requires you to speak to people and to get up in front of people or to get on camera. And I think it's a skill that not many people know how to do. Yeah.
I always ask this question and I always get shot down because I know linear TV is basically dead, but is there ever a return to some form of in front of camera? Toni?
Yeah, well, I don't know. That was where I started my career, and I still love that side of things. And it's weird because I feel like radio and social media have kind of morphed into, I feel like I do lots on camera on social media all the time, which is very similar to what I did on telly. It's just not on linear TV anymore. The last thing I did for TVNZ was I hosted the America's Cup and the Olympic Games, and I loved doing that. So if something in that space was to come up again, I would jump at it. But I feel like there will be something on camera. I just don't know what form it will take. I mean, I know that a lot of the, stuff, the Herald, they're doing a lot on camera now anyway. What that's going to end up looking like, I'm not sure. But I feel like I'm going to be on camera in some way, shape or form, whether it's just social media. And I don't know, watch the space with the telly side of things. I don't know.
Yeah, 100% you'll be on camera. Right, Toni, this has been an epic. I'm going to round us out with some words from Matt. I asked him just to give his perspective, his description of...
He was late coming back too. He said some sort of fucking bake sale or something. He was trying to coordinate. So he came in this morning.
My overbearing wife made me do this, made me do some bunnies.
All right, he writes, being around Toni is a bit like the film Something About Mary, where people adore her. There's something about Toni. She has an amazing ability to make those around her feel like the most special people in the world. Not only that, but to also bring out the best in themselves. It is such an incredible and fortunate place to be. And I can just say, I have felt special. Like, this has been so cool, Toni. Seriously, like, it's been such an amazing episode. And I get it. Like, we met for the first time today, and there's just that special warmth and energy and such good vibes, eh?
Yeah, I knew it from the first time we met at that flat.
So memorable.
And only hung
So memorable.
No, I had it in the back. I don't know if it's recency bias, but as soon as you walked in today, there is that genuine warmth. You lean into conversation, you listen, you're genuinely interested. And I've sat here on the other side of it and just been fascinated by the last 90 minutes or so of chatting with you. So
Is
thank
that
you so
how long
much.
I've been chatting?
No, probably longer.
It feels like 5 minutes. I love chatting to you guys. I could be here for... I've got nothing on today.
Clear the schedule. Thank you so much, Toni, for coming in. It's like, let's stay in touch. Let's be best mates.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks for having me. And the next bake sale, I'll bring you something, I promise.
Yeah, some bark. See ya.